An exciting new feature in Adam is the ability to create aggregated results based on other results that the pupils have attained. Adam can use these results to display reports, or as we'll see in the next video, to calculate a year-to-date result for the pupils. Let's look at the process of adding a new aggregated results. Starting on the Reporting tab, click on the option to add a new aggregated result. The first thing you have to do is choose which academic year this result applies to. We're going to choose an old one here, only because we have some data ready for us. Next, Adam needs to know whom this aggregated result is intended. This decision will impact the type of calculation that you can use. Selecting the default, a specific grade and subject, will allow me to choose any of the three possible calculations, which we'll get to in a minute. But the other two options, a whole grade or a subject, will only let me choose two of them. Let's choose to create an aggregated result for a specific grade and subject, and I'll point out the differences as we go. Adam now asks for the description for our aggregated result. This is quite important because it allows us to identify it easily later on. Here I'm going to call it aggregated year result. Because I've asked Adam to create one for a specific grade and a specific subject, I have to choose those grades and those subjects here. In this case, I'm going to choose grade 10 and I'll leave it as English. Adam now wants to know how we want to calculate this result. Do we want it based on reporting periods, or do we want it based on assessment categories? These two results that are shown first will always show. However, the individual assessments that we see at the end here will only show if we've chosen to use a specific grade and subject. First, let's look at the reporting periods and we'll work our way from there. If we click on Next, Adam shows us the reporting periods for the academic year that we've chosen and asks us to assign a weighting to them. So here I'm going to choose 10% for the first term, 20 for the third, and 40 for the third. Now you'll notice that those totals don't add up to 100, and that's not important. Adam will calculate them based on the weightings of the total, in this case of 70. If we click on Save Changes, Adam will tell us that the aggregated result has been updated, and we can click on this link to see the report. Clicking on Next shows us the report, our Term 1, Term 2 and Term 3 results, followed by our weighted results at the end. Let's look at creating the second type of aggregated result. I'm going to click on the Add New Aggregated Result, and again I'm going to choose my academic year, but this time I'm going to choose, just for the sake of illustration, to create an aggregated result that could apply to any subject within a grade. I then click on Next. The first thing that I want to show you here is notice that the individual assessments option no longer shows. Here I'm going to choose to create an exam mark for a particular grade, and in this case I'm going to use grade 11. Because we're creating an exam mark, I'm going to use the assessment categories option this time, and I click on the Next button. Now, instead of showing me simply the reporting periods, I'm shown the assessment categories within those, and I can now choose a weighting for them. Because there are no exams in the first term and I don't want classwork to count, I can weight that as 0. For my second term exams, I'm going to choose a weighting of 20, and for my third term exams, I'm going to choose a weighting of 40. I can then click on Save Changes, and again click to see the report. Because I chose an option that could apply to any subject, Adam is asking me which subject I want to use when I generate my report. In this case, I'm going to choose mathematics. And if I click on Next, I'll see the exam result for Term 2 and the exam result for Term 3, followed by the weighted result. You'll notice that the 0 weighted columns don't show. Before we finish up on this video, let's have a look at the final type of calculation. Once again, I'm going to add a new aggregated result. I choose an academic year, and because I want it to apply to the third type of calculation, which is the individual assessments, I must make sure to choose a specific grade and subject. If I click on Next, I can type in, for example, portfolio result, and choose a grade that it should apply to, and choose a subject, and then I can choose the individual assessments option. Then I click on the Next button. The one thing that I'm asked to do here is to add a new line to this report. As we click on that, we get some options on the left, followed by a list of assessments on the right. And again, at the bottom, there is an option to add a new line. The text box at the top here is waiting for a description. This is the column heading that appears on our reports. So here I'm going to say class tests as my heading result, and I want my class test to be calculated. I can either do it using an average, or I can choose the best results of the class tests that I select in a minute. I'm going to choose the best 3 because there are quite a few tests that we can choose from. The total weight, I'm going to weight those as 30. So I choose 30 from my drop-down list. And on the right-hand side, I can begin to choose my test results. Now, as I go down, you'll notice that there are in fact tests from different classes. I've chosen from 12C above, and here's a test from 12I. The reason for this is because of pupils who may change classes during the course of the year. And it's important to be able to get all of their results regardless of whose class and hence whose mark book that result was recorded in. Similarly, we also want to be able to compare pupils from different classes, and doing this way allows us to do so. So I'm going to quickly go through this list and choose all of the tests. Let's click on add a new line, and here I'm going to have an exam result as part of this report, and I'm going to choose an average, and I'd like our exam result to also count 30 marks of the total. So I'm going to go through and my list of assessments to term 2, which is where my 2 exams are stored. There's an exam and there's an exam, and there are the last 2 exams. In this particular school, they didn't write exams in the 3rd term, so we only have 2nd term exams available. At this point, I could continue adding a new line, and each line would add a new column to our report, but I'm simply going to save at this point and then click to see the aggregated results. So here we have our class test results and our exam results, and of course an average of those 2. That's it for this video. In the next video, now that we know how to create an aggregated result, we'll see how to assign an aggregated result so that we get a year-to-date mark for the pupils.